Hello, welcome to month 8 of our 2023 $5 Quilt Club. Here we go, we have our pattern. I accidentally printed in black and white, but it is in color, so if you want to help distinguish which fabrics go where, the color is a little bit better than black and white. So first is always to cut out your pieces. I'm just going to roughly cut these out and show you how to piece this. So like always, we're always going to start with the first piece. And in this case, it is this little triangle on the side right here. And if you print it in color, you can tell that it's supposed to be black. So we're gonna do that. Because I've already made this, I know that it's black. But this is the lighter, smaller, this one here. And then these large triangles are your lighter aqua. So that's the fabric placement for this. And then all of these exterior triangles, they are all black. So these also. So those are all the black ones. Okay. So I want to make sure that I have enough fabric for B1. I'm going to just lay that on there and roughly cut out a piece to make sure that that's large enough. So I'm going to fold the paper between B1 and B2 because that's the seam we're working on. So I'm going to fold that pretty close. So this covers, we'll squish this way. So I'm going to make sure that I have a 1/4 inch of fabric on all of the sides to make sure that it is covering that entire piece. And I'm going to put it right sides together with this fabric. So this fabric looks like I need it to be about that long. There we go. So this one's in nicely in position. And now I'm going to place this one right here. So now when I lift it up, I can see this diagonal line here. This is where a light box is really invaluable so that you can see without having to lift up your paper. So if you need to pin this, glue this, whatever you need to do, and then take it to your sewing machine, make sure your sewing machine has a stitch length that is set to like anywhere from 1.5 to 1.8. So somewhere around there, it will give you a really nice perforated paper so you can tear it off. So, and then we're just going to stitch, make sure your fabric is right sides together, just like always. We're going to stitch starting before the line and then all the way through the seam allowance. Today I'm stitching on the brand new Janome 9480, which is so fantastic because it has these little knobs on the side where I can change my stitch length. So super love that. Got a little skinny here, but because my stitch length is so short, it should be just totally fine. If you're really worried about it, just toss another line of stitching across that. So this is where it's really important to make sure that that gets pressed with a hot iron or a seam roller. You want to make sure that that is not folded like this in any way. You want that pulled all the way open without, distorting your fabric too much, because you want to get your accurate points when you go to join these pieces together. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna finger press this from the other side so I'm pulling on the paper instead of stretching the fabric itself. So B1 and B2, those are all covered, and so now I'm going to work on B3. So I'm going to tear a little bit of my stitches here, make sure I can get that line folded. This is where cardstock is nice and handy, and again that light box makes it really, or light pad, really handy so that you can see where your paper is and you can fold it. Add a 1/4 ruler saves you a little bit of time when you go to line this up because you want to cut a 1/4 inch off. I think I need to get that. There we go. Okay, so there's my piece that is trimmed. So, and then now we're going to try to cover this piece here, B3. So we're going to grab our second fabric. And again, we're going to make sure it's right sides together. So here's the right side. And I want to cover the area covering this entire piece here. So my example fabric is 4 inches, but yours in the kit should be closer to 4.5. So this is a little tight, but not too bad. So since I want to make sure that this entire piece is covered, I'm just going to, take this off of there so that it's not pulling on my fabric. Make sure that all the sides are covered so I can see that they're all covered when it's upside down. And then I'm going to open it up, Because this awesome new machine has the recessed feed dogs, I don't have to worry about my fabric flipping over when I slide it under. So that's super nice. And here we go, stitching all the way down and across. And also has the foot pedal cutter. Way cool. All right, so we stitched all the way across. We have this nice 1/4 inch seam. And so now we can push this open. And I'm going to do that same thing where I'm going to tug a little bit and press a lot because I don't have a hot iron right next to me for this video, but you guys are all pros now at paper piecing because we've been doing this for months. Okay, so B1, B2, B3. So now we're going to be working on B4. So this is where I'm going to fold the line again. If I have to tear your stitches, then just tear your stitches a tiny bit. Okay. And now we want to trim. Okay, I'm also going to trim this side because it's huge. All right, there. Okay, so now I want to get a piece of black. Is this big enough? Oh man, it's theoretically big enough, but I'm not going to chance it because that's the #1 problem. Is just cutting a piece that is too small. So can I go this way? No, not really. I'm going to go this way. So I just want to make sure that this is large enough because that is the #1 easy mistake to do, is to cut a piece that's too small. So I'm just going to overkill it here. So there we go. Everything's lined up and now I can stitch across this entire spot here. Okay, so now that piece will be completely covered. So there. Now I can trim this a little bit. So I can put my 1/4 inch. So I love using a square ruler when I have to trim a square. That way I know this is going to be a nice, you know, perfect 90 degrees, right? So, and I can do both sides without having to move the ruler. So in this case I got, you know, it's not so long, but there. So that is perfectly trimmed up there. And so you can see how pretty it is. It's a little short right there, but I think I'll be okay because it's only right here. So I can see that it's only right there. So, okay, so I look okay on that one. All right, so now back to this side, we're gonna do B5. So same as always, we're going to tear the stitches, get this folded. Now, if you want to use your ruler to line it up perfectly, then you can easily just run your fingers along the edge and then you get this perfect crease. That always works too. Okay, now to trimming. There we go, trim that off, and now we need another piece of black. Okay, so the black I'm trying to cover is this one. So this looks beautiful. Way large enough, totally is gonna work to cover that. So, but I need to cover it so that it's upside down, right? So I'm going to check all my sides so I can see my line right here. I don't know how well you can see it on the video, but I can see this is my triangle line right here and then also right here, so I can just pick up my paper and see if it's large enough on all sides, and it is. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and confidently put that under there and stitch all the way down. All right. Okay, so here we go. So I can see the fabric on both sides. I know that's at least 1/4 inch. So now I'm gonna press that, try to press that really well. Okay, so now we are on the last two. So you're gonna make 2 of these units and then you're gonna make 2 of these units, always the same technique. So I'm gonna just finish this guy and then we'll come back and I'll have a separate video just for assembly so you guys can see how I line that up. So I think I'm gonna use, this is a really long one, so I'm gonna use the ruler to get that straight line, and then there. I don't really want to cut the paper. I'm gonna pull that back. There we go, just to get it out of the way. All right, 1/4 inch trim deed. Okay, now for B6. So here we go back to our fabric. So we want to put right sides together, and make sure we have enough fabric for the whole thing. So, oh, because I cut it straight, that is going to dramatically decrease the amount of fabric I get. Okay, don't cut yours straight because then I think you might run out. So when you are cutting these, you should be able to alternate which way they go to use the entire strip. So it looks like I got a little happy and cut too much. So I'm gonna pre-cut the next one so that I have enough fabric on this one. So I'm gonna cut this at an angle. That way you'll have enough fabric in your kit, because if you cut it straight, you won't. So FYI on that one. Okay, so don't do what I just did on that one. Cut it so that you have enough, and that way you have this long angle that you can alternate between each one, because I'm gonna have to piece that so that I can get the next one out of there. Okay, so don't be super generous with this one. It is a little tight. Just FYI. Don't do the straight cut. You gotta be a little bit closer. Okay, so here we go. So, and we're gonna make sure that that's enough fabric on all sides. Yeah, you might definitely want to pre-cut that one. And again, mine is only 4 inches, but in your kit you should have 4.5 for that bird print. Okay, here we go. Okay, all the way across. Okay, so I want to press that without stretching my fabric too much. Hot irons are definitely the best for this. Okay, so now I'm going to trim my fabric here. So I'm going to pull up those stitches. If you ever rip too far, it's really not that big of a deal. You can always just tape it if you need to. Paper tape, masking tape, those are a little bit better than Scotch tape. Scotch tape tends to gum up your needle a little bit more than masking tape does. All right, here's a perfect black piece for my fabric. Make sure that it's large enough on all sides. And I can go ahead and stitch the last one. All right. Ta-da! Now all you have to do is trim this. I'll show you that real quick. I'm just going to press that, make sure that it gets trimmed in the right spot, because if it's folded when I press it down to trim it, so you can see how there's a little bit of bubbling here because I didn't press it with a hot iron. You can see how there's a little bit of extra gap. So I might have a little hard time lining up my pieces because I did not use a hot iron. So the irons will help prevent the fabric from shifting because it will pull it directly to the right spot. Do you see what I'm talking about? How it's just kind of, it's bubbled just a teeny tiny bit. It's really small, so we'll have to see how that goes. All right, here is my corner. I'm going to try to trim up here, lining my 1/4 inch on my ruler with the solid line right here, this boulder one, so that I can trim the edges, both of them, without having to move my ruler. So nice. Okay, now for this one, lining up my 1/4 inch all the way across to make sure it's consistent, and go and trim the whole piece here. And same with this one. All right, beauty. There's our beautiful piece. So we just got to repeat that one more time, and then you're going to do the exact same technique here for these two. So I won't have a video for those, but I will have a separate video for assembly of all of our pieces together.